Begin with approval of the agenda. We'll welcome Pastor Jack Anders from the First Baptist Church to offer our invocation tonight, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. We have one presentation, a business spotlight, Greenfield Preschool. Then we'll move to our citizens announcements. These are the non-controversial 2-minute announcements about garage sales and lost dogs, those kinds of things. Then we'll move to our consent agenda, which has 3 items: the October 23rd, 2017 regular commission meeting minutes, invoices, renewal of the Gainesville interlocal agreement for repair and service of traffic signs and beacons. Then we'll move to public hearings and ordinances. We have item A, legislative public hearing and second reading of ordinance 2017-18, 2017-19, 2017-20. 2017-21, 2017-22, 2017-23, 2017-24, 2017-25, and finally 2017-26 of the City of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County. Then we'll move to item B, legislative public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2017-33, amending the 5-year long-term schedule for the capital improvements element of the comprehensive plan as part of the annual update of the CIE. Item C is legislative public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2017-34, and ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended relating to an amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan and the regular amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 Florida statutes, CPA 17-04, requested by the City of Newberry to amend the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry to change the land use on properties recently annexed into the city identified by Alachua County. Parcel numbers so stated in the agenda. From Alachua County Rural Agricultural to City of Newberry Agriculture. Finally, we'll have our agenda items. Item A is Executive Officer Evaluations. Item B is Resolution 2017-38, Wetlands Management Legislation. Item C is discussion on allowing construction of permanent second-family residences on residential properties in agriculture and residential zoning districts. And item D, I've actually spoken to Commissioner Martin, who asked for this to be on. And Mr. Manager, have we been able to have the meeting that Commissioner Martin asked for in preparation for this agenda item?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor. Staff has had our hands full, and we just hadn't gotten around to getting that rescheduled. My apologies.
Would Commissioner Martin be amenable to pulling that off until you schedule that meeting? We'll get staff to schedule that meeting.
Absolutely.
ASAP. All right, so we will take agenda item D off, which means we'll move straight to comment. City Manager, City Attorney, City Clerk, Commission, Mayor, citizens, and then we will adjourn the meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as read?
So moved. Second.
So amended, I should say. So moved. So second by Commissioner Coleman. Does the audience have any questions or comments about the agenda as amended? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Pastor Jack.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you tonight for allowing us to come together. We thank you for our city. Thank you for Mayor Marlowe and our city council men and women. Thank you for our leadership in Newberry. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of living here in America and our freedoms that we have. Lord, we thank you for our military. God, in this month of Thanksgiving, help us to be thankful every day for all your blessings. God, we praise you. We love you. Ask you to be in our midst tonight and just direct the affairs and the leadership of the council tonight, Lord, and of this city. Lord, just continue to provide for each family, each home, and each individual here that lives in Newberry. We praise you and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Jack. We appreciate you. All right, we'll have our business presentation, Mr. Manager. Business spotlight, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, about once a month we spotlight one of the businesses in Newberry, and this month we are especially privileged and proud to introduce Miss Jamie Tate from Greenfield Preschool. She's owned it since last summer of 2016. It is on State Road 26 at the corner of Northwest 218th on the south side of the highway. This preschool's been there for many, many years. The Tates purchased it a year and a half or so ago. They are open 12 hours a day, which makes for long days for Ms. Tate there. Licensed, have 13 full-time employers, so they're a legitimate big employer for the city of Newberry, and they have an enrollment of 60 students, both in preschool and after school. They're a premier program that offers affordable infant through VPK programs. And like to welcome Jamie, and then she's accompanied tonight by her daughter Gracie and by her husband Mike, who is not currently in the child care business, but is itching he's itching to become more involved with the business. So like to introduce Jamie and her family to you, and if you'd like to say a few words, we'd be happy. And
Welcome.
If not,
Please step on down and introduce yourself if you're willing to. We don't want to put you in the spotlight, but it is called Business Spotlight, so.
Well, I wasn't really prepared, but I just wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to be part of the Newberry community. We have really enjoyed our year and a half in the city. I know that we've grown a lot, and the families have been very involved with us as well, so we hope to continue to grow with you guys.
Well, thank you for what you do. It's from one teacher to another. I know all about those 12-hour days, so we appreciate you coming to town. All right, citizens' announcements. Does anybody in the audience have an announcement they'd like to make? Welcome, Mr. Marlin.
Thank you. I'm Marlon Day, Newberry Branch Library, Alachua County Library District. I'd like to announce that NASA scientist Peter Chitko will talk about plans for exploring outer space. He will be at the library on Wednesday, November the 29th at 6 p.m. Mr. Chitko was here 2 years ago. If you haven't had a chance to hear him speak, I would encourage you to do so. He's very vibrant. He knows his stuff. He works for NASA directly. He's really, really good. That's going to be Wednesday, the 29th of this month at 6 p.m. I'd also like to announce in January, we're partnering with the city of Newberry. With my city, I'm part of it. I'm proud of it. It's going to be Tuesday, January the 9th at 3:30. We're going to have a fire truck, a lift truck, hopefully, and city officials there. And we're very excited to have that. It's going to be a great children's program on January the 9th.
Thank you, sir.
The NASA gentleman's name?
Peter Chitko. Chitko.
Commissioner, have any other questions for Mr. Marlin? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Always doing great things. Any other citizens' announcements tonight? Any announcement from Main Street? Hearing none. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Martin, second by Commissioner Coleman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to public hearings and ordinances. Mr. Manager, do you have, is Brian going to lead us in the agenda item A?
that is correct, Mr. Mayor. Brian Thomas, our planning director, is going to lead us in this discussion.
Can I interrupt?
Sure. Commissioner Martin?
Ms. Peggy, I was wondering if you had any information about the Main Street Festival. We haven't had a meeting since then. Just feel free to cut Brian, right?
Peggy Lloyd. That's okay, he's nice.
Should have put your blinker on there.
I don't have a final report yet because I don't have all the finances in, but it looks like it was a very successful festival. We had a lot of people. There was a Marlin, bless Marlin. We'll have all the dance troops and the stage. That was really exciting. I think it's one of the nicest things that's happened in a long time. So,
Huge crowd.
A huge crowd, but lots of fun, different things to do, and made a lot of money.
All right.
I don't have, you get that next.
That's fine. I figured that's what you were nodding at me. Next time, right? Next time. All right. Mr. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second reading and would be the enactment of the 9 ordinances listed there for annexation 29. The map behind you shows the relative locations of the different ordinances. As a reminder, the annexation process, first step is you pass the ordinance which annexes the properties into the city of Newberry. The second step is you change the future land use map from county future land use to city of Newberry future land use. You have your first reading. It's transmitted to the State Department of Economic Opportunity. They review it, After approximately 45 to 60 days, you get your returned report from the state, and then this, assuming no problems there, then the city adopts the ordinance in the second reading. And then the rezoning from county zoning districts to City of Newberry zoning districts, which in large part can be done concurrently with the future land use map changes. Currently, we're in the second step, the second reading ordinance for adoption. So there's still several further steps coming up. Each individual parcel, you've looked at these before. This one is the corner of 170th Street and State Road 26. It's also one of the proposed annexations that the county has filed an objection to, which we'll talk about a little bit more next. This is the northernmost annexation. You can see the property just to the north is High Springs, Newberry, and then the two large parcels coming in. This is also the subject of the letter that I passed out that we received Thursday afternoon. It was too late to get into the packet that had already been posted, but letter from Wesley Carter, who's the president of Long Kala Incorporated, the owner of these properties as well as this property and probably these properties down here as well. His primary concern was he wanted to make it clear that his annexation of these properties into the city of Newberry was not contingent in any way or influenced in any way by the Rails to Trails program. He's working on some issues with the county as far as the actual path of the trail up in his property, and he just wanted to make sure the city wasn't somehow tying the two together. And we assured him that while this commission has passed a resolution in general favor of the Rails to Trails project, we haven't put any money aside for funding, and we wouldn't get between property owner who had issues with the county.
Mr. Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, the property that is annexing it isn't part of the Rails and Trails anyway, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, as you can see on the map here, the Rails and Trails projected path would actually be just outside of this. He just wanted to make sure that there was no way the city was somehow tying the two issues together. Next property is two parcels, 1720. None of these have, this one had an initial objection by the county, but they did not, it's not included in the materials that they're going to talk about tomorrow. This is another one that's subject to the county objection because of the lack of substantial contiguity. This one, there's no objection as well. And this one, oh, it was so small I couldn't see it. That's the little triangle parcel that I purchased for Dillon's Grove to provide roadway connectivity between the two parcels, this one down here. And then finally, you've got actually eliminating an enclave, hurrah, instead of creating one, right here, which is just north of and west of the Newberry Industrial Complex. This is Watson Construction over here, and this is the Collision Center here.
Is this the self-shelving?
Yes, this is Top Shelf. This is the location. I'm sorry, no. Top Shelf, oddly enough, is actually already in the city up here. This is that old abandoned restaurant location that's been sitting vacant for decades. I think so. Yeah. And so it's a completely surrounded enclave that will be eliminated, and one little hole gone. And so to refresh memories on the objections, the 170th and State Road 26 intersection there, a number of property owners petitioned to come in. The county's objections are basically that there's minimal contiguity here at the connection point. It's not compact by state standards, and that it would create a pocket enclave here, which we are actually hopefully working to eliminate over time, the pocket enclaves we have. And so this is one of their primary objections. The other two objections are here. We already have a pocket enclave. This is over north of 30th Avenue on the southwest side to the east of Newberry, downtown Newberry. Bringing the parcel in here under 2017-21 would close what's already essentially an enclave, but it's a finger enclave or a pocket enclave as opposed to a complete enclave, but they're closing that out would create the enclave. And then the property a little south of there, again, only has the point-to-point contiguity. It doesn't have substantial contiguity, which is their primary objection. Just died. We were done with that anyway. We were. So tomorrow morning, the county will be meeting to discuss the results of our hearing tonight. And in advance of that, they've posted their agenda item, which also includes a draft resolution to basically start the process to formally object, which is done through the circuit court. And I don't know if the city attorney would like to expound on the process, but basically they would file a formal objection, and there's a process it goes through to try to prevent the annexations that they've objected to for the reasons that they've objected. And ultimately, if they would prevail, then the city would incur court costs, and if we prevailed, the county would incur court costs, which the city attorney would be better able to address than me. But that's sort of the bottom line, is that they may or may not dig their heels in and go that route and go that far. We won't know until they hear what we have done tonight and what you've done tonight, and then we find out what they'll do tomorrow.
Mr. Attorney, do you want to advise the commission on our chances of winning that if the county objects, and how likely it will be that this body will incur those costs versus the county body would incur those costs?
Well, as your planner has crafted the ordinances, there are a series of ordinances, so each ordinance stands or falls on its own merit. And there's various issues with each one of the ordinances that are being challenged. I would tend to agree with the point-to-point analysis that under the governing case law would be not sufficient, in my view, to gain contiguity. And so I think that particular ordinance we should look at as potentially problematic. The other ordinances, the issue was several, and it's hard to see from the resolution as to what specifically would be the objections on some of the other ordinances. But one of the arguments is that that's probably me, I'm sorry about that. One of the other arguments is that there's lack of contiguity, and I disagree with the analysis of the county on that issue. Whether it's reasonably compact or subject to providing municipal services in the near future, those are arguments that would have more validity. I'm talking about this one right here. If you look at the green versus the red shaded area, that under the case law has been argued to be and found to be contiguous. Whether it's sufficiently compact would be the argument that would be interposed by the county, and whether we could win that or not would be something we'd just have to work through. I think that one is a much closer question. The point-to-point ordinances, I think, would be declared invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction. The process of the inter-dispute resolution under Florida statute envisions that we would try to work together before filing a lawsuit to determine whether or not we could come to some sort of an agreement between our two governments in avoiding litigation. That's really the gist of that provision. And in the past, the city and the county have worked out a methodology. If they are feel that the annexation is inappropriate, we've worked out a procedure where we said, okay, we will attempt to continue to annex with voluntary annexations with the intervening property owners. And we've even conducted a referendum, a ballot, to determine whether or not the citizens would vote for the annexation, and the county has withdrawn their objections to annexations on that sort of basis in the past. So we'd certainly work with the county and see if we can square up our boundaries and the areas that have pockets or that sort of thing, see if we can continue to annex to solve those problems, Mr. Mayor.
So the process, the board has to decide tonight, they could pass all of these to annex it. If the county chooses tomorrow to object to one or more or all, then we would go into another round of trying to work together before we get into the lawsuit. Okay,
The
any
ordinance
questions for the?
My advice to you, though, point-to-point ordinance, I think just is not gonna stand, clearly, in my view. So I would suggest we hold off on annexing that particular
That piece.
ordinance. That would be, just delay it, let's work with them. And for instance, if we can contact a property owner that's adjoining that property and annex that in conjunction with that, then I think that would be a more appropriate thing to do with that particular ordinance.
Commissioner Martin.
This one right
Can
here,
we-
Mr. Mayor.
Can we click through the ones that are
So this is the one. that-
objectionable at this point?
This is the one the attorney is saying we
Okay.
don't have a very
I understand
strong
that
case.
one. Okay,
And then their other primary objection would be this one.
so it's just the two?
No,
Really?
The third one, well, it's better shown better here.
By the county.
You've got this one right here, which
They're
saying-
contesting that one?
They're contesting that one because it closes off the pocket enclave into a complete enclave if you annex that one there. And so on this screen, you see both objection 2 and objection 3.
Okay. I would rather see us potentially go into a round of negotiation and use that as a bargaining chip, as a giveaway. Hey, we'll concede. If we're at the point where we need to concede things, that's an easy kind of concession to make that provides us a little capital in the negotiation versus not having anything if we start without that one. Does that make sense?
I think that's what the attorney is offering, is suggesting that we do at this point, since now that it's on record that we're already going to concede that in negotiations, and they watch this every night.
I'm sure they do.
I thought he said start by taking it out.
My suggestion, at
Start-
least on the point-to-point, which
Right.
would be ordinance 2017-23, clearly does not meet the requisites of the statute. So my suggestion would be to
Start with that.
table that ordinance to a date 30 days out, have staff work on the property immediately south of that ordinance to see if we can annex it, and then that may change the county's viewpoint as to ordinance 2017-23.
Commissioner Glanzer.
Have they seen this already so they would know that we're taking it out and trying to, make,
No, they would be seen.
they haven't seen this yet?
No, they have not.
Okay.
They know that we're trying to annex 2017-23, and they're objecting to it based upon the point-to-point analysis.
And they're waiting for our decision
Right,
tonight.
right.
They're waiting to see what we do tonight.
One of the things the county has objected to over time is annexing in those properties that are within these pockets on the contention that it's basically creating further enclaves, and I disagree with that analysis. You're filling in areas that the county cannot provide services to, so you're in the process of eliminating the enclave. That's right. So we have a basic disagreement on that level.
But I think you could adopt Commissioner Martin's strategy and even tonight remove the one that is more objectionable and send Mike into and Scott into future meetings to say, hey, we agree that there are boundary criteria here, and we're reading your criteria to make these decisions. So we removed that one temporarily while we work on some other properties, but these we think we meet the criteria and maybe earn some potential goodwill going in.
Just that one
Commissioner
that's
Glamer.
point to point, that's the only one we're thinking about
I
taking
think
out.
that one clearly does, so I would suggest tabling that to a date certain in the future, and then there's several ways to annex property. One, these are all voluntary annexations. People are saying, we want to be in the city of Newberry versus being in the county. So that's how this annexation is proceeding. Many of these other property owners, I suspect, would also petition voluntarily to be in the city of Newberry versus the unincorporated county. So that's the process that is undertaken in one way of annexing. Another way of annexing is by agreement between the two jurisdictions. So we could come to an agreement with the county to annex these and fill these areas in. The county takes the position that they will not do that without the consent of the property owners. So it's,
Will you be there tomorrow, or who's going to be there?
somebody from our
Somebody,
office will
okay.
be there, yes.
Brian will be there. Any other questions, Commissioner Farnsworth?
And then by special act is another way of annexing, and then the last way is by referendum. So there's various ways to annex property and solve the problem.
Are you
I'm sorry.
allowed, are you allowed to petition the other owners of those properties, like sending them a letter and
Sure.
asking them if they want to
Absolutely.
annex? And has that been done?
We have done it in the past, and in fact, the county has required, we had an annexation in the northern part of the city. How long ago was that, Brian? 2 years ago, would you say?
I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
There was an annexation that we conducted in the north. They objected to it. We sent out letters to all, it created in their contention a pocket of unincorporated area. We sent out letters to the unincorporated area and asked them if they wanted to be part of the city of Newberry, and actually conducted a referendum vote on that issue. That has probably been longer than 2 years based on your reaction.
Actually, it predates my tenure, so I can't,
Okay,
I can't
all right.
speak to it, but
All right.
I'm familiar with the one we're talking about, and I don't think the referendum passed.
It did not pass, that's correct. It did not.
Just for the commission's knowledge, I may be getting my committees mixed up, but the PNC looked at this and they had the exact same advice of, let's go out and talk to the existing property owners and see if we can get them as allies on board to come in, because then that lessens the county's objection. If there's more parts touching, then it becomes more fitting the criteria.
And one of the things that the city attorney discussed was an agreement. There's something called a Part 2 interlocal agreement that the county has actually suggested that we would enter into with them after negotiation. That basically, it wouldn't compel people to annex in these pocket areas, but presuming that the county and the city commissions don't have the will for compulsory annexation, but it would allow, based on the negotiations, the service provision before and after the agreement and such, that we could technically create enclaves while filling in these pocket areas. And so that's the course that they've suggested. It's probably something that we should go ahead and pursue for future annexations, at least in terms of being able to, piece by piece, eventually get these in. And then maybe, as you were talking about, start a sort of a campaign. We'll define the area that we want to close these pockets up, and then target those people with direct mailing and that kind of thing. Try to encourage as many as possible to come in and fill all these areas in.
Commissioner Martin?
In light of the conversation, I would suggest that we go ahead and preemptively tell the county that we're going to remove and table the one, but let's also submit a draft letter that we are going to send to adjacent properties to help address their question about creating the enclave. And we can use that to further our own efforts to get those people in as well.
Is that in the
Just
form
get
of a
something
motion?
drafted for them.
Is that in the form of a motion, Commissioner Martin?
Yes, it is.
And I have a second from Commissioner Coleman. Any more conversation on the motion on the floor? The motion is to remove the one temporarily, draft a letter at the same time to send out to the residents, but to move forward with the other parcels.
Send a copy of that letter to the county as well, along with our initiative.
So we'll withdraw those two pieces?
Just the one. Just the one. Temporarily withdraw it while we draft that letter and send it out to the surrounding property owners. Does the public have any comment or conversation on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, don't go anywhere, Brian. Item B. Is there something else you wanted to say
I
about
just
item
wanted
A?
to be clear, so we approved all of the.
No, we're going to read through the ordinances
each
on.
one.
That's correct. We got to go through.
Each
uh,
one
second, final.
individually.
That's right. That's exactly right. And Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and do that right now.
Go ahead.
First one of which is 2017-18 ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel numbers 04271-003-000, 04275-000, 04275-001, 000, 04275-004, 000, 04275-005, 000, 04275-006-000, 04275-007-000, 04276-001-000, 04287-000, 04287-002-000, 04369-002-000, 04370-001-000, 04370-002-000, as more specifically described in this ordinance, as petitioned for by the property owners pursuant to Section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use zoning and land development regulations and enforcement of the same, providing directions to the clerk and the commission, providing a severability clause, and providing for an immediate effective date. Appropriate motion is passed on second and final reading. Ordinance number 2017-18.
I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Martin. Any conversation on the motion on the floor? Any public comment on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next ordinance, Mr. Mayor, is ordinance number 2017-19, an ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel numbers 01676-000-000, 0178-00, 01678-000-000, as more specifically described in this ordinance, as petitioned for by the property owners pursuant to Section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use, zoning, and land development regulations, and enforcement of same, providing directions to the clerk of the commission, providing severability, a severability clause, and providing an immediate effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2017-19 upon its second reading by title only.
Do I hear a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner McGehee, a second from Commissioner Coleman. Any discussion on the motion on the floor from the commission? Any discussion from the motion from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, this is ordinance number 2017-20, an ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel numbers 01832-003-000, 01832-004-000, as more specifically described in this ordinance, as petitioned for by the property owners pursuant to Section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use, zoning, and land development regulations and enforcement of same, providing directions to the clerk of the commission, providing a severability clause, and providing an immediate effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance 2017-20 on its second reading by title only.
Have a motion? Motion Glanzer, motion from Commissioner Glanzer, second from Commissioner Martin. Any conversation on the motion on the floor from the commission? Any audience comments on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, this is ordinance number 2017-21, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel numbers 04443-001-000, 04443-000-000, as more specifically described in this ordinance, as petitioned for by the property owners pursuant to Section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use, zoning, and land development regulations and enforcement of same, providing directions to the clerk of the commission, providing a severability clause, and providing an immediate effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2017-21 upon its second and final reading by title only.
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner McGehee. Any conversation on the motion on the floor from the commission? Any conversation from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. You want me to do some of those for you? You getting a little tired?
I think, as long as you're not tired of hearing my voice, just tell me that, no. Ordinance number 2017-22, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel numbers 02587-001-005, 02587-001-007, as more specifically described in this ordinance, as petitioned for by the property owners pursuant to Section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use, zoning, and land development regulations, and enforcement of the same, providing directions to the clerk of the commission, providing a severability clause, and providing an immediate effective date. The appropriate motion is pass ordinance 2017-22 upon its second and final reading by title only.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Glanzer. Any conversation from the dais? Any conversation from the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, the next item is ordinance number 2017-23. This is the ordinance that the commission just voted to remove from tonight's agenda and bring back at a subsequent meeting. My suggestion would be to continue this. We only have one meeting in December, is my anticipation, which would be our December 11th meeting. If you want to continue it to the December 11th meeting, or if you want to push it into January 8th would be the next point. But the proper motion would be to continue it to a date certain in the future, and the date certain in the future would be either the December 11th meeting or the January 8th meeting, January 2018.
Brian, what do you need in terms of time? December seems like it's pretty close if we're going to reach out to property owners and convince them.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I mean, given everything you just mentioned, as well as being able to, if we're going to get other property owners' participation, then we sort of have to restart the process from the first reading again, because we'll be adding them in, and so we'll be going back another step. I really think probably
So maybe second week in January, second meeting in January?
That's probably realistic, yes, sir.
What's that date?
That would be the 22nd, right?
January 22nd. So we need a motion to continue item 2017-23 to the January 22nd. Thank you. meeting. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Coleman. Any conversation on the motion on the floor? Any comment on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Martin, did you have a question?
I'm sure it goes without saying to make sure that we contact this business owner to let them know, or this property owner to let them know what's going on.
Mr. Mayor, with that, I'll
Moving right along.
Okay.
Yes.
This will be ordinance number 2017-24, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel number 02667-011-000 as more specifically described in this ordinance and as petitioned for by the property owners pursuant to Section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use, zoning, and land development regulations, and enforcement of the same, providing directions to the clerk of the commission, providing a severability clause, and providing an immediate effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2017-24 upon its second and final reading.
I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, second from Commissioner Martin. Any conversation on the motion on the floor? Any questions or comments on the motion on the floor from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, next is ordinance number 2017-25, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel number 04392-000-000, as more specifically described in this ordinance, as petitioned for by the property owners pursuant to Section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use, zoning, and land development regulations, and enforcement of the same, providing directions to the clerk of the commission, providing a severability clause, and providing an immediate effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2017-25 upon its second and final reading by title only.
I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, second from Commissioner Coleman. Any questions on the motion on the floor? Does the audience have any questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. Last one.
And this is ordinance number 2017-26. This is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel number 01910-000-000 as more specifically described in this ordinance, as petitioned for by the property owners pursuant to Section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use, zoning, and land development regulations and enforcement of the same, providing directions to the clerk of the commission, providing for a severability clause, and providing an immediate effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2017-26 upon its second reading by title only.
I have a motion from Commissioner Glanzer and a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Any comments from the audience on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Attorney, for carrying the weight on that one. Now, I tried to get us to item B. Got pulled back. So, are we ready to move to item B now, Mr. Thomas?
Yes, sir. There's no presentation on this, but basically, every year we do an annual capital improvement element update. The way that our comprehensive plan was structured up to now, we actually included the table that had all of the specific improvements in it. The Comprehensive Planning Act revisions in 2012 conducted by the state basically allow us now to annually pass an ordinance locally for the capital improvement plan, which is then basically implemented as the capital improvement element. It's kind of confusing. I know when you look at our comprehensive plan, they talk about elements, but really, if you think of it in terms of chapters, that's the capital improvement chapter of the comprehensive plan. And so what we're proposing to do is what most comprehensive plans do. Rather than have the entire table of those improvements, which changes frequently, the new law from the state in 2012 allows us to amend it to say, basically, we're just adopting the annual capital improvements plan locally on an annual basis. And so the capital improvements plan that you annually approve through the budgetary process is what's referenced in text in the capital improvements element under this change. There's no policy change. It basically just, we're taking the tables out that otherwise would need to be amended on an annual basis.
And by
in the
tables,
actual
you
comp
mean
plan.
kind of chapters?
The-
Like the
the-
chapters of each?
Well, they actually, if you look in
They call it.
if you look in the packet, there's the actual tables with specific items for the capital improvement program. And so,
I would just offer that the tables are the project lists.
Yeah.
The list of projects that you see in our CIP, those have been converted in the tables. And Brian is suggesting that that may be too specific because our tables change too frequently and it requires ordinances and state approval. So we're trying to follow suit with the rest of the communities in the state and make our capital improvement element a little more generic, referencing our capital improvement plan. Is that correct?
absolutely. And it removes the necessity of actually changing the specific project items on an annual basis in the comp plan. And just, the comp plan now just references the capital improvement plan as the capital improvement element.
Okay, so the board has already agreed to the plan. Now we're just shoring up some
It
and
streamlines.
making it streamlined,
Yes, sir. It streamlines the
which we
policy
probably
that's
should have been
already
doing in the
place.
past, but
Yes,
we get better every year. Any questions on the CIE part? Everybody understand the difference between the CIE and the CIP? Throw some more letters at you.
I don't really, but I'm not gonna hold it
Okay. It's a,
up. I'll vote no.
it's a,
Only because of that.
it's kind of a boring, tedious thing, but it does streamline it. So I know, for the folks watching, they probably don't care a whole lot. But this does just allow us, instead of going back every year and looking at that chart and then going back through that process, it allows us to keep moving with our CIP and just update the CIEs as needed. Is that?
Yes, sir. I mean, the Department of Economic Opportunity, recognizing that that these program charts change frequently every year, basically made it easier on the local municipalities and counties to say, okay, your element can point to your capital improvement plan that you appropriate through your regular budget process and ordinances at the local level, rather than having to keep coming back to the state to approve budget or approve comprehensive plan amendments on an annual basis.
Is this time sensitive, Brian? If the commission wants to pull it so they have a chance to call you and get a better explanation, or is the rest of the board willing to move forward? Would you like more time to talk about this
And
in detail?
Mr. Mayor, to that point, this is an ordinance, so it's going to take 2 readings.
So we could pass it tonight, and you still have the chance to get your feet under you on it later on. You tell me your comfort level. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Then what, we need to read the ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, this is ordinance number 2017-33, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an annual review and amendment of the text of the capital improvements element of the City of Newberry's comprehensive plan under the new expedited procedures established in Chapter 163 of the Florida statutes, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is passed. Ordinance number 2017-33 upon its first reading by title only.
Okay, do I have a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth,
Second.
second from Commissioner Glanzer. Any conversation on the motion on the floor? Any public comment on the motion on the floor? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call, Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Farnsworth, Commissioner Martin.
No.
Commissioner Glanzer. Motion passes 4-1. Commissioner Martin in the nay. All right. Item C, Brian, don't go anywhere tonight. You will take us
Mr.
through
Mayor,
this
is
item as well.
This is basically a cleanup from Annexation 28. We need to finish the future land use map amendment, changing from the county agriculture to City of Newberry agriculture. And this would be the first hearing for the future land use change. The map behind you demonstrates the different locations where all of the properties annexed under Annexation 28 are located.
Board have any questions for Brian?
It's basically 20 parcels, 686 acres roughly.
Mr. Mayor? No, you're good.
Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and read this by title only.
Please
then.
do.
This would be ordinance number 2017-34, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan under the regular amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing for a change in land use classification from Alachua County rural/agriculture less than or equal to one dwelling unit per 5 acres to the City of Newberry agriculture less than or equal to one dwelling unit per 5 acres of certain lands within the City of Newberry, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2017-34 upon first reading by title only.
Do I hear that motion? A motion from Commissioner Martin and a second from Commissioner Coleman. Does the dais have any questions on the motion on the floor? Comments on the motion on the floor? Does the audience have any questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right, that moves us out of ordinances. Finally gets Brian off the hook. And we'll move to our agenda items. Item A is the executive officer evaluations. Each of you received a copy of the overall scores for the charter officers, and you have the comments. You have a chance to read through that. If there's anything that you would like to talk to any of the charter officers about in that process, I would encourage you to do so between now and the next meeting. So based on our employee policy, the merit increase that would be concurrent with those evaluations would be 4%. Of course, the city attorney is under contract. He's not, and we didn't budget anything for the city manager. So the city clerk would be the only charter officer receiving that merit increase. This board is certainly, it's your option to think about other things that we could do for the charter officers. All of them received excellent evaluations, so it's open on the floor for discussion. We will be bringing it back on the 27th meeting to actually vote on it by resolution. That resolution will be 2017-29. So if you want to spend the next couple of weeks thinking about it, talking to them, we can bring it up at that meeting, and that's when we'd be voting on it anyway. Commissioner Glanzer?
What was the city manager excluded from the 4% raise?
He forgot to include himself in the budget process. It just slipped his brain.
Seriously?
No,
Oh.
being facetious,
Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry.
He is not seeking a pay raise this year.
Okay, that's commendable, thank you.
It is commendable. He did receive a very high mark on his evaluation. I think we all agree he's done an excellent job for the city this past year. It's commendable that he's not seeking a raise. Like I said, there are other things that we can think about doing: training, cars, some vacation time.
Yeah.
One car, not cars up. I spoke.
Yeah, I was going to ask if, I know that we did the CEs last year. I didn't know if you were the continuing education classes or.
A couple things. A year and a half ago, the commission authorized a pretty expensive professional development course that I enrolled in. It was at UF, and I was really excited about it, and I really appreciated that y'all authorizing the expenditure of those funds. And the class got canceled from lack of, there weren't enough of people like me that were interested in it, so I didn't have that one. When we negotiated a contract extension for me in the late spring, we put some professional development objectives in there At this point, I haven't taken advantage of any of them, but I certainly do intend to. It's more along the lines of professional development for city managers, and I anticipate doing that during the 3-year term of our contract, of my agreement with you. But if you'll recall, when the budget season started out, it was the tightest of all budgets, and so a lot of things like there were some personnel requests. A lot of things hit the cutting room floor very quickly, and even in our final budget, it wasn't just full of extras. And so, we discussed it as staff and just felt like there were some other priorities that needed to be addressed in this budget, and that's what we've done. I'm super happy the budget contains enough for me to seek my continuing education, and I was at a conference last week through travel that's funded through our budget, and came away with some really great ideas. Very excited about that. 50 or so emails went out this morning before 10 o'clock saying, hey, let's do this, let's do that. So I appreciate that, but there's nothing really on my radar right now.
One of the things that I think we could think about for the next meeting would be for the city clerk, on top of the 4%, which is budgeted in that office. The city clerk has been very generous with the compassion leave sharing, and there are some byproducts of that generosity that are detrimental to what she gets in the future. So one of the things that we could do, which wouldn't particularly cost us too much, would be to give her those give her those hours back that she'd be eligible for had she not come to the aid of some other employees. So that would be something that we could do, I think, to show our appreciation for the job that she's done in the past year. That wouldn't particularly cost us a whole lot, wouldn't have huge budgetary increases. Is that stated accurately, Mr. Manager?
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea, Mr. Mayor.
So those would be things to think about. We would make the 4% merit pay effective October 16th, which is when the rest of the employees' merit pay increases went into effect. Am I stating that correct as well? So you guys have a couple weeks to think about that, ask questions, and we'll bring it back on November 27th meeting for a vote by resolution. Does that sound amenable to everyone? Commissioner Farnsworth.
Just a question, how much did we budget for merit increases this year? I can't recall.
Is it, Mr. Manager?
Our budget included merit increases of up to 4% for employees. So there was a scale from 0 to 4% increase based on your evaluations.
And how much of that allocated money was used? Was that all used?
Without having Dallas here, when we set our budget, we presume that the average score is going to be 2.5, or the average increase would be 2.5 or 3%, somewhere close to the midpoint of that. And I have not received any feedback that we were missing the mark. I did see the scores and recognize that there weren't a lot of 4% increases given. I think that the majority of our raises were 2 to 3% increases.
If any money's left over, that could just go back in the general budget?
Yes, sir. Well, depending on where you're funded out of, for all of our general fund employees, it goes back into general fund. For our utility employees, it stays in there in those enterprise funds.
Thanks.
And of course, our city attorney received very high marks as well. We appreciate the job that you guys have done this past year, the entire office. So we'll certainly remember that when we go into contract negotiations with you again, that you guys have been doing a wonderful job for us.
Well, thank you. You all are instrumental in providing us a level income, and that really helps in a law business to provide a good team. And so we appreciate what you all do for us as well.
I base my scores off Courtney, was us.
Well, he gets credit for good hires, right?
Wise
Good
man,
hires,
that's right.
yes. Okay, so we don't need a motion to bring this up on November 27th. We'll bring it up on. We do need a motion? No.
You don't need a motion.
No.
Okay.
We'll prepare a resolution. The city clerk's salary is set by resolution, so we'll prepare the appropriate resolution for that meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item B, Resolution 2017-38. This is the wetlands management legislation. City Manager, you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an item that I don't believe the commission has any background information on, so I have about a 30-minute presentation.
That's good.
Mr. Mayor, this is an issue that's been discussed significantly at the commission level, so I won't spend too much time. As you know, that the county is contemplating two ordinances that are related to environmental impact. One is for stormwater and one is for wetlands. At our last meeting, you adopted a very similar resolution related to stormwater. In between the last meeting and tonight, the county had a meeting. County Board of County Commissioners conducted a meeting, and they discussed these topics, and their conclusions were that with regards to wetlands, the board decided to move forward with the adoption of this ordinance countywide, meaning that into the municipalities. There was an interesting statistic that the municipalities, all total of 9 municipalities, only comprise 4% of the wetlands that will be impacted by this resolution, which many in the room felt was justification to exempt the cities. The county felt that because it was such an insignificant amount, the BOCC, that it was the reason why it should be included, and they gave staff direction to put out public notice, and there will be, the county only has to do one hearing, public hearing for ordinances, so there will be one public hearing where the county commission has expressed their intent to adopt the ordinance, and then there'll be countywide wetlands legislation in addition to the state wetlands regulations that we must comply with. On the storm, yes, sir.
If the bill that's being proposed in Tallahassee, if that goes through, will that just negate that, or does that
as it's currently written, it would, because it grandfathers in legislation that was enacted prior to January 1, I believe, 2016. So the county's legislation would then be preempted, and the county would not be able to impose those regulations within municipalities. And there are two local bills moving forward, or that are planned, both by Representative Clemens, one addressing stormwater regulations and one addressing wetlands. It preempts local government from developing regulations that are more stringent than state regulations. So tonight's resolution, Resolution 2713, addresses wetlands. Representative Clemens has requested that we get support from 9 cities. Say currently we're at 8.5. So we're going to have to really work hard. One of the cities has some concern about the language, and so we're going to try to work real hard to address that. But I think we're pretty close to delivering the 9 cities per Representative Clemens. And just as a final comment, in order to introduce these bills for the 2018 legislative session, Representative Clemens needs to have they need to conduct a second local delegation meeting. We had one in September. It's where our local delegation meets. It's a public hearing of sorts, and they'll discuss this. That meeting is scheduled for next Monday. I sent you all invitations. It's not for you all to be there. It's for you to be aware of it. If you can attend, it'd be great. At 9 o'clock at Santa Fe College, where the proposed bills are going to be introduced. I'm expecting that 9 cities would support and 1 county would voice opposition to, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And then it's off and running in Tallahassee.
And just so you know, the half city is not objecting to the idea. They just have their own idea about the language that should be there, but they're on board with the intent. It's about whether or not they pass their own, but we can still make the argument that all 9 cities stand united in standing against this. 8 cities are willing to go with the language here. 1 city would like to offer a little bit different language. We'll see. But the intent of the 9 cities is unanimous. Commissioner Glander, do you have a question?
No.
No? Is that it, Mr. Manager?
That concludes my presentation or my report.
All right. Item D, discussion allowing construction of permanent second.
We need to
Oh.
adopt the resolution.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, I
I'm
moved
just-
to approve, to adopt the resolution.
I need to
read it in.
Okay.
This is resolution number 2017-38, a resolution of the City of Newberry, Florida, in support of the local bill amending section 373.023 of the Florida statutes prohibiting Alachua County from adopting or enforcing wetlands or surface water regulations more stringent than state regulations, requiring Alachua County to apply state standards to review of development applications that impact wetlands or surface waters, resolving conflicts of law, repealing all resolutions in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is passed resolution 2017-38 upon its reading by title only.
Make a resolution to approve that resolution.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Glanzer. Second from Commissioner McGee. Any conversation on the motion on the floor? Commissioner Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a meeting with Representative Clemens last week, I believe. He was very excited about the opportunity to protect city self-determination, as he recognizes they are closest to the citizens impacted by this. I encourage fellow commissioners to support the resolution, and just wanted to commend Representative Clemens on his leadership in this area.
Agree with that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Does the public have any questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to agenda item C, which is just a discussion on allowing construction of permanent second-family residences on residential properties in agricultural and residential zoning districts. I think Brian is going to tell us a little history of how this issue came to be.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. We bring this before you to seek direction from the commission. Simply, we had a few citizens that have requested to build permanent accessory dwelling units on their properties to bring family onto the property. Primarily, it's aging parents that they want to be able to help take care of, but not put into a nursing home kind of situation like that. And so did a little quick research on it and told them we'd bring it to the commission for the commission's direction on whether to pursue it or whether to hold off. And so basically accessory dwelling units are simply units, whether they're either attached or detached units on the same property that have a full kitchen as well as bathrooms. So they could serve as either an attached apartment, or you could have a little cottage of some sort on the same property. Some of the potential benefits, as the baby boom generation ages, it's a way to keep the families closer together, help provide care to aging parents. You can increase property values, obviously, because you've got a higher assessed value, which from the city side can help lead to some additional tax revenue, and serve as additional retirement income if the ordinance, if there is one, goes that direction. You can look at it in multiple ways. It could be strictly for family use, and there's ways to limit that so that that's what happens. Or if the commission was amenable to it, it could also be used, say, when mom and dad move on or pass on. It could be allowable to use as a rental in the future. So there's kind of a couple divergent paths you could take, or you could allow all of it. Those are some of the considerations for the direction of a draft ordinance if we got to that point. Currently, the only provision we have that's similar to this is we allow a family waiver on agriculturally zoned properties for 5 and with an extension up to 10 years. And that typically is if you already have a regular built dwelling, site-built dwelling, then you're allowed to have a temporary mobile home. Again, after 10 years, it's supposed to be removed.
How many acres? 5?
It's on any agriculturally zoned property, so it could be on as small as 1 acre. And then basically our current code does not allow for the second full kitchen to be constructed or built in any dwelling right now.
what would the process be like of coming on to somebody's property and saying it's been 10 years now, you got to take that house out of here? Have we ever owned it? Because I know that there are lots of people who have utilized this. I don't know we've ever had the enforce the taking the house away now part.
Mr. Mayor, it is something that is difficult to track because somebody has to actively be going back and looking at those on an annual basis, and B, if mom and dad are still living there or the family's still living there, it would be very difficult to actually impose. Absolutely. To my knowledge, we have not attempted. I don't know if the ordinance is allowing that's actually even been in existence long enough to get to that 10-year mark where we would ask somebody to remove it. I do know, I've been told other counties are actually pretty strict about it, and at the end of 10 years, unless you can agree some kind of a further extension, one of the residences has to be eliminated.
Commissioner Farnsworth.
So this would not include mobile homes that have to be a brick and mortar kind of type house?
Generally, yes, it would be a site-built home. Some communities allow for mobile homes in agricultural areas, or if you were in a residential area that was zoned for mobile homes and you had a large enough lot that would accommodate it, you could consider it for there. Again, it would all be how you crafted the ordinance, what you did and did not want to permit. You would not be able to put a mobile home in, say, a regular single-family residential zoning district. It would have to be already zoned to allow for mobile homes or on the agricultural zoning district, which allows for mobile homes.
So bottom line is they could put a mobile home on there if they wanted to instead of
Only if the current zoning over that district allowed for mobile homes.
I think you could probably regulate on aesthetic or architectural details if you wanted to. In other words, the secondary home could match up with the architectural details of the principal residence. You could regulate on square footage. There's any number of things that you could do.
I've got a list of some of the common limitations that communities put on. It's right online.
I have a concern with having two homes on like as small as 1 acre. And environmentally concerned, I don't think that would be a good way to go.
And that would be something that would, it could be something that you only allow it on 5-acre parcels or greater or something like that. That would all be part of the direction.
Would it only be like one additional house, or could it be several additional?
Typically, it would only be one. If you were going to go beyond that, you then would get into basically either a minor or major subdivision process where you'd have to plot it out like you would a normal subdivision. So,
how would you prove that it's for a family member? I mean, because how would you prove that it's for a family member? Could somebody just
similar to what we do right now with our temporary family waiver? They sign an affidavit, basically a sworn affidavit, notarized that it's for a family member, and that if the family member leaves, that they have to remove the structure.
But I thought it was brick and mortar. How would you?
Well, for this it would be. I mean, the current one we have, it has to be removed.
The new one you'd have to remove, or the one that exists now you have to remove?
The one that the current provision we have now,
you have to remove
if they
it.
sign an affidavit.
But that's the mobile home.
Right. But the new one we're talking about, you would not have to remove it.
No, you wouldn't have, you would not have to remove it.
Right.
That's what's up for conversation.
Okay.
So that's, that's part of the direction that we're looking for. Just some background, right now, some local areas that allow for it. Alachua County, actually, unincorporated Alachua County allows for it in agriculture and almost all the residential zoning districts they have. City of Alachua, High Springs has it in some limited areas. They're form-based zoning districts, and several Central Florida counties allow for it as well. Spoke with one of the planners over at the City of Gainesville, and he said that they're investigating it, but because of the student issues in the student ghetto area, that it's much more complicated in a city like Gainesville because they have all of those considerations as well. And so they're talking about it, looking at ways they might be able to accomplish it, and they probably will end up doing something in that direction. They just have to figure out how to put some more limitations on students, on the student areas.
Commissioner Coleman.
Up until I became the ag guy, I picked up all over Alachua County mother-in-law suites. And I guess the way that ordinance is or whatever, the aesthetics have to be the same as what the house is. And it's really nice. I don't see where the disadvantage is there. I don't see any disadvantage of environment. I mean, there's a regulation of what the square footage is, and I've seen where they've had to go in and add another septic tank, or it's just because it's in Alachua County doesn't mean that there's still not sewage and water already there. So I think it would really, I mean, for us, for our tax base out here, I think it would be a great thing.
Yeah, like I said, the minimal research I did so far, I believe the county passed their ordinance allowing for accessory dwelling units in 2007, and they've only had about 75 units built using that ordinance since then, about half urban and half rural. So it's not, probably not going to be an overwhelming number of applications for it, but it allows for it. And having, in my former life as a realtor, I know that we would show properties that had, these suites built illegally, and the ordinance then helps to bring those into conformance. So the ones that are out there can then be brought back into compliance. So. No.
Do you have any more on the presentation, Brian? Or you?
Yeah, just a little bit more. Some of the common limitations, first and foremost, is if you don't want strictly rental situation on these properties, then one of the requirements would be that the property owner has to live in at least one of the two dwellings. They have to live either in the cottage or in the primary home. And then even if you decided to go ahead and allow rentals of the accessory unit, you still have the benefit is you have the actual owner there, which tends to almost guarantee, or at least a better guarantee, that the accessory unit's going to be kept in the same condition as the primary residence. A lot of times you have to connect to the existing utility system of the primary residence as opposed to putting in multiple meters. Again, that's a method that you could use to limit the rental potential for these units, if that's the decision that you wanted. Design, and as alluded to by the city attorney, typically you'd be required to design them in the same architectural style as the primary residence, so that it lends to the compatibility with the surrounding area. And then they usually are limited in size, somewhere between 33 to 50% of the primary residence, or up to a total limit, so 800, 1,000 square feet, something like that is very common. And then you
Hang
also,
on one second before we get too far away from that slide, Commissioner Coleman.
But what I see the advantage of the rental is that mom and dad do leave, and if we all decided that this passes, the rental now, that's broke out curtilage, so there's no exemptions on that when it comes to what your CAMA value is and your tax base coming off of that. So just got to keep that in your mind too, which is an advantage for the city of Newberry too, if that's the way we would go with it.
typically, you'd also be required to provide off-street parking using the same driveway again. That lends itself to compatibility with the neighborhood around it. Mobile homes, RVs, and travel trailers typically would not be permissible unless you were on an ag situation where you have a mobile home and you'd allow a second one for the residents, the accessory dwelling unit. Obviously, we'd only allow one per lot typically. It would have to be sold as part of the primary residence, unless, again, you were maybe in an ag situation where you had enough property. Maybe you had 10 acres and you had the two residences and you could actually split into two 5-acre parcels. But other than that, if you were, say, in a regular residential area, you wouldn't apportion that out and sell it separately. It would have to be kept as one and sold as one. And then typically home occupations aren't allowed out of the accessory dwelling unit. They're still allowed in the primary residence, but you don't want to create a situation where you have the homeowners building the accessory dwelling unit just to be their on-site office for a home-based business. So that's kind of it. The rental potential. I mean, we have a real shortage of rental properties in the city of Newberry, and so over time, as the inventory increased, if you were to allow this, that could help at least a little bit towards providing some affordable housing and rental properties in the city.
Okay, so this is a discussion item. There's an awful lot of things here to hash out. Do you guys want to launch into that discussion tonight? Do you want to sleep on it and have staff bring back 2 or 3 different options that we can pick at? Because we could probably spend 3 hours talking about.
Primarily, Mr. Mayor, we're just seeking guidance on whether the commission thought there was any merit to this concept at all, and whether to move forward with some drafting of some potential ordinances, or whether the commission wasn't interested.
Sounds like we got a head nod that we want to bring us back
Strongly.
some. Do you guys want to give staff any guidance on things you don't want to see? You like the percentages of the size of the household? Do you want to make sure it's brick and mortar, not trailers, and so they don't waste their time bringing back an ordinance that you definitely don't want? Commissioner Glanzer?
I think, many people can't afford anything other than a mobile home. So, and especially if it's an older parent. So I would like us to see, let's include that to begin with and see if we can make it work. I know you want it to look aesthetically like the house that exists on the premises, but
Primary house, maybe a mobile home.
because, and they have these nice little park models, that are livable, and as long as they, live up to code, I would like to see that included. I don't want to exclude something that's going to prevent people who can't afford it from having to take advantage of the accessory dwelling unit.
Well, I'm sure you'll probably get with Alachua County and see what they're doing. I know last year in my area, I bet you there was 25, 30 of these. They're just, you hit a nail on the head, the
baby boomers.
Baby boomers. And, they have to build and spec for what, aesthetically with the house. And, there's some nice ones. I've seen a lot of them too where they're off to the side and they actually have the garage doors for as soon as the parents, and they might, obviously they don't want to rent it, so that'll end up being a good size garage. There's all kind of ways they're doing it, and it looks nice. If we, I don't think we need to be putting sheds out there and all that. But
Commissioner McGehee, did you have a suggestion about?
No, I was just going to say that I think if we go with the mobile homes, putting like an age limit on newer ones. That way we don't have somebody picking one up from the woods and bringing it, setting it up.
Yeah. Just Commissioner Martin.
No, go ahead, please.
I would agree. I think the age of the mobile home should be a consideration. I also feel like there's probably some opportunity, if we're real concerned about the mobile homes, is that if you're going to have a mobile home, you have to have at least a minimum number of acres involved in the overall property. But I think a family use would be ideal for a mother-in-law or something sweet. Again, I don't want to get into rentals so much unless there's a minimum acreage. I think 33% of the primary residence is probably a good target, or 1,500 square feet, whichever is greater maybe, or something like that. I'm kind of indifferent whether it's attached or detached. I would like to entertain some options as far as the septic system and multi-metering on a single property. I think you potentially get into issues, not only for us trying to get in there and read them, but just trying to clarify, and I think that may create a little bit more work than necessary for us. If we're going to do mobile homes, maybe we try to get a little bit more stringent on the longevity of how long those are actually there. If we're anticipating it being primarily for older parents, we all only have a finite lifespan. But definitely the acreage minimum, if we're going to entertain some of those things that maybe aren't as desirable as a perfectly built, site-built home. Or maybe you have to have a conversion time period where you can have the mobile home there for 10 years, but you need to convert it to a permanent residence or something at time certain.
Okay, Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, we'll bring back options. That'll probably, the next time you see this, will be, these are all the options we could find, and these are some recommendations or what other folks do. I think for, not to make a decision tonight, but food for thought, and a primary decision with regards to mobile homes is, would mobile homes be permitted in areas that currently do not permit mobile homes as primary residence? I think that's would result in a lot of concern from the neighborhood, even if it has a 10-year time limit. So without getting deep into that into that discussion, I ask for y'all to be considering how you'd like to address that whenever it comes back.
Commissioner Glanzer?
Again, that would preclude so many people from being able to have one, because a lot of people live in places that they can't have a mobile home, but if it's done nicely, you could put it in the side yard or in your acreage. But again, I'd hate to see it, just be off the table in the beginning. At least we can consider it mobile homes. Because again, they're going to be smaller, they're going to be newer, they're not going to be like mobile home parks.
Well, and there's got to be some way we can find a balance. I would assume if you're living in a very nice residential neighborhood, you probably have more financial resources to do a brick and mortar. If you're on a 5-acre lot out in the rural countryside and your primary residence is a trailer, then you could have a trailer that fits the trailer that you have. I think for someone like me, the rental property would be important because I wouldn't be able to have the upfront money to do something like that. I would need to know that on the back end I'd be able to kind of recoup it. It's just a fact of life that you want to do these things for your parents and have them close, but at some point you gotta pay the bill. I think for the ones that have the folks that have taken advantage of the ordinance that we currently have, the complaint that I get from the surrounding people is that the primary residence is on a 5-acre or 10-acre lot right in the middle, but then they put the secondary residence right up against the fence, very close to the neighbor, and so they had a nice distance in between. But now there's another residence that's right there, so that might be something that you want to think about. And then I'd also always, just caution, we're very good at making rules, but we're not as good at enforcing the rules. So, we can come up with all of these rules. Well, they got to move it off in 10 years. They can't rent it. They can't. But practically speaking, how would we go about really enforcing that? So, at some point, I think you just got to pick your battles when it comes to those things. Any other comments from the commission on this potential new ordinance in Newberry? Public comment on this idea?
A question, because it
Can you
includes
introduce yourself,
residential.
Ms. Peggy?
I'm sorry, Peggy Loy.
Thank you.
Talking about residential zoning districts. Does that include the city proper, the old city? And if it does, are we going to require the setbacks that are required by code? So if you add another building onto the site, you still have to have your setbacks? Just a
I think that would be an excellent thing to consider when we bring it forth.
Because I know when I built my house, I built a mother suite on the house. Couldn't have a kitchen, which turned out to be a good thing, but that part of the house is separate. If it had a kitchen, it could be for another family or something. Not that I want that, but just as a comment.
All right. Good comment. Any other public comment on this concept? All right. Hearing none, we don't need a motion because this is just on the floor of discussion, but I think you've got your marching orders. Come back with some options for us along what you've heard tonight. Anything that we need to clarify for you before we leave this? All right. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Okay, we'll move on to comments then. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess first I'd like to express my appreciation to the City Commission for the feedback I received and the scores I received on my evaluation. I really have a passion for what I get to do here in Newberry, and I appreciate you guys for putting up with me. We've already covered the second Alachua County delegation meeting. Just as an FYI, we're having a Thanksgiving luncheon this Thursday at noon. All elected officials are invited to give thanks with us and enjoy a good meal.
And let's bring some canned goods.
What Friday is that? Friday?
It is Thursday at noon at the municipal building. Yeah, I would say that if you haven't gotten a good start in the food drive competition, it's getting pretty ugly. But I don't want to discourage anybody. I think in the last 2 years we've generated more than 1,000 pounds of food that we take here. We keep it locally to Blessed Hope, and it's a great time of year for us all to think about those in our community that are less fortunate than us. And our food drive, our staff really turn out. Jamie, he's bending the rules a little bit. Brought in some pies as I guess bait or some sort of an incentive. He's calling it an incentive.
He said they ate 3 of them today.
But it's below the belt. It's a dirty pool whenever you say that the only people that get pies are the ones that are contributing cans to your department. Because I had to protect our stash at City Hall because everybody said, well, give me my cans. I'm going down and giving them to Jamie.
What kind of pies you got, Jamie?
Yeah, well, I told him he was raising the bar too high on that. That was no fair. So we'll his evaluation's coming up soon.
Mr. Manager, on that note, I noticed that the elected officials are severely lacking. I know that we've got a secret surprise attack plan. We're not going to announce it here tonight, but I'm going to be getting. We'll just see what happens. Airlifts coming through town, dropping us. But I'll be getting with each of you to see how we're coming with that strategy.
I'll talk to Commissioner Comey.
We
Slacker.
We appreciate all the all the support on doing such a fine project for our community. Last thing is we are 6 days away from Gatorback's Mini O's. And when Gatorback was coming in looking for a new site and they were going through the application process, I found out how many people, including me, didn't really know what a great venue Gatorback is and how well received it is worldwide. And so the owner of Gatorback has asked me to extend a special invitation to the community of Newberry, but especially to our elected officials, to spend some time out at Gatorback when they start. It's the Thanksgiving weekend. It starts on Wednesday or Thursday and goes through the whole weekend. Take a couple of hours out there, take your spouses, take your children, let them see what a fun, family-filled event this is, and what a significant event it is for Newberry and for Alachua County. That concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. City Attorney? City Clerk?
Yes, I just want to thank you all for the feedback on the evaluations as well. It's a pleasure working with each and every one of you, and I really have enjoyed it, and I look forward to another year. And secondly, regarding municipal elections, are you all interested in reducing the qualifying period from 30 days?
Reducing the qualified period from 30 days to...
Why?
Mr. Attorney, would we need to put this on the agenda and notice that we would talk about it? So that's what you're asking is, do we want to?
I have a clarification from Attorney Johnson, Attorney Walker. I wanted to get with you before the meeting, but I assume that Courtney has spoken with you.
She did.
She did. Would you like to? There has been some discussion.
It's 45 days now.
It's 30 days.
It's 30 days.
And that 30 days, it's the window. It's less than, not more than 60 days before the election, and not less than 30 days. And it's really tight there at the end, trying to get the ballots produced and out. And
So we're at 30 days to qualify right now.
What would we reduce to?
It used to be 2 weeks.
What would we?
I thought you...
that's for you all. I'm just bringing
So
it up.
our ordinance, not state ordinance, says no more than 60, no less than 30.
Right.
Right. Our code of ordinance. I thought you were saying state law says that. So we're already at, so we're at 30 days. So this would have to come back. We don't need to launch off into a...
Yeah, I mean,
I do have do have a question.
Commissioner
If you could find out for me, how many reports could this cut down that you have to turn in? I mean, that's a valid question, because I know there's a couple of that you have to do during that time, so it would help you out, as far as keeping up with us.
The reason why I brought this up, I know that we can't, that you all can't discuss it because it's not on the agenda, but we have only 2 more meetings.
Before we're in it.
January the 8th, the proclamation will be on the agenda.
Is it, Madam Clerk, is it 30 days or 30 work days? Because if we reduce it to 2 weeks, is it 30 calendar days?
It is,
Or 30, because we're only open 4 days a week, so if you reduce it to 2 weeks, that's only 8 days. 8,
it is 60, it's not weeks or work days or days that we're.
it's actual
It is
days.
60 days prior to the election, not more than 60, not less than 30. So you have 30 days usually, and there's weekends and, now that we're.
That are
closed on
counted
Fridays,
in those days. So effectively, we'd be, if you took it to 2 weeks, you'd be giving people 8
Days.
days, right? Commissioner Farnsworth?
Judy, didn't it used to be a 2-week qualifying period, and then 2 weeks later you'd have the election?
I believe so. I'm not sure when this 30 days.
I don't know when it came in either.
But it's really tight now with, before we had paper ballots and things were a lot different, and since then we have conformed more to the Florida statute, except for specific things like the 60-day, the 30-day window for qualifying. And we need to get the word out to our public if we're going to do, if we're going to do that. So I would not have brought it up, but we have two meetings, because on the proclamation, that is required to state the qualifying period.
Commissioner Lanzer?
Wouldn't reducing the campaign period have the same end result as reducing the qualifying period? So if you leave the qualifying period the same, but reduce the length of time you have to campaign, would that help you more to do your job during the qualifying period? I'd like to see less campaign time. No, I'm just saying, if we're just trying to give you more time to do your job during qualifying, leave the qualifying period the same and reduce the campaign period.
How many campaign days do we have now?
You can campaign now.
Oh, that's true.
You just, please, you just cannot.
You have to start filing the
accept-
paperwork.
Accept monies or expenditures prior to filing a DS, the treasurer report with the city clerk office. So you can discuss, and you just cannot spend monies or accept contributions before filing that form with the city clerk.
Okay, well, it seems like there's enough interest to put it on the agenda for the next meeting for a discussion topic, so we can announce it, let folks know that we're going to talk about it ahead of time. We should spend some time thinking about it. Just know that if you do something like this right before an election, it becomes an election issue. And I think reducing it too much might send the wrong signal to folks. So it might be something that you do after the next election, so that there's plenty of time for everybody to get used to the change, instead of doing it too close to an election. But that's just my knee-jerk reaction. But I think we should think about it and bring it up on an agenda, and we can talk about it. Good job, Madam Clerk, for bringing up a controversial issue in comments. You never do that. Well done. Well done. Yeah. Any more comments?
We were down to 2 days prior to, January.
It is coming fast. On that, can I piggyback here, since we're talking about meetings? What is this commission's, were you going to bring that up about the second meeting in December? When is the second meeting in?
Christmas Day.
It's on Christmas Day. So would you guys like to?
We're happy to get feedback now. I'll tell you that it's an agenda item on the next meeting.
I think we can probably say now. It's true. But you need to think about before the next meeting is, do you want to cancel it entirely? Do you want to move it to earlier in the month? So that's what you
absolutely
wouldn't want to think about. And I guess at the next meeting, staff will give us some feedback about how busy we are and how much is potentially going to be on that.
Absolutely.
We'll put it all on the first meeting in December and have a good 6-hour meeting, right? Knock it all out.
Happy to do that.
All right, Madam Clerk, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay, that's it. My understanding, it will be a discussion item on the next agenda.
Okay.
Next meeting's agenda.
Next meeting, we will talk about qualifying period.
Thank you very much.
All right, Commissioner Coleman.
I want to revert my time to Commissioner, he wants to talk about environmental issues.
Commissioner McGee.
Just one thing that I've noticed over the past couple of weeks, if you're taking your kids to school, going to the elementary school down 15th Avenue, 20 miles an hour is the speed limit. That's not the speed suggestion. I've seen several incidents where people have almost been hit. I'm really, it scares me because something's going to happen, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Launching from the stop sign like you're at Gator Nationals, so you can fly it behind somebody and still sit either at the train, waiting on the train, or waiting at the stop sign, to get out on State Road 45. You're not saving yourself any time. If you're 15 minutes late, you're 15 minutes late. The 4 or 5 seconds you gain by running 40 instead of 20 is worthless. So, just anybody that's watching, just please watch your speed and put your phone down when you're driving, especially in the school zones. But that's all I got.
Commissioner McGee, I had actually asked ASO to patrol that area last week and the week before rather strictly. And I believe they passed out a couple of, I know they pulled over a whole lot of folks and issued warnings and maybe a couple of tickets, but I certainly would appreciate if ASO could continue that increase for another week or so to kind of get especially right before the holidays, that's when the kids get, particularly, and some parents, get a little bit edgy. So I agree, it's a dangerous area, and when you mix in the teenage drivers with the young elementary kids walking around, it gets dangerous. Yeah. Commissioner Farnsworth?
Just curious about the status of the fire department and the construction since we lost our contractor.
Mr. Mayor, the city did terminate the contractor for the fire station project, and there's a bit of work left to do. It's not a substantial amount of work to do, and I'd say 5% of the work needs to be completed. Of that 5%, 90% of that 5% is to be done by subs. It is our intent to get an all clear from the city attorney and then hire those contractors, the subs that were already working on the job, to finish the work, and the city will pay them for the work that they perform. The work that was going to be done by the general, we will either do that in-house, or we will bid that work or find a contractor that can perform that work for us, those few items. And so there's probably a week or two lapse in trying to make sure the subs won't show up until I issue POs. So there's going to be a little bit of a lapse, but our staff are continuing to working. We started the project with a lot of self-performed work intended, and our station, boy, they are really good craftsmen over there. So the fire department has been performing, and we're really close, but we have no concerns about our ability to finish. The quality of the work all along has been very good. It's been other issues that were problematic with the project, and so we're confident. I expect that somewhere around the beginning of the year we're going to be finishing up the work and getting ready for a grand opening ceremony.
The important thing is we're still on budget and we're still on the original timeline.
I was just approached by a citizen that was concerned that the firemen and firewomen were having to do more than was originally intended due to the loss of the contractor.
And I appreciate that concern. Actually, the going back to the original work scope, the fire department intended to do much more than we agreed for them to do, and there is no plans for the fire department to do more work than we originally intended for them to do. I would say the one example would be, or exception might be, we had intended to hang about 4 doors, and the contractor was going to hang another 15 or 20. We may hang 4 extra doors through that, but there's no significant increase in work scope by our staff.
Appreciate that feedback.
Commissioner Martin?
Nothing significant other than just an appreciation to the Main Street organization. I know Marlon's already left, but y'all's handling of the Fall Festival seemed to me like it's the best one that we've had so far, so kudos to you guys. Thank you.
Commissioner Glanzer?
Thank you. I wanted to commend Main Street organization too. I think it's the best one we've ever had. My family had 2 booths and we were swamped. It was just great. I know you did a lot of hard work, and thank you for that. I can't remember if it was Manager News said that the commercial buildings, they're asking downtown if you do Christmas lights to put them all around the border of it. Maybe you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, we're just thinking as part of our Christmas decorations, we are highlighting the roof lines on all the municipal buildings with a clear or white light, and we're just asking all the businesses in the historic areas, especially west of the railroad tracks, to follow suit, and think it'll just add a very nice ambiance to the whole area. It won't just be city decorations, it won't be city organization decorations, it'll be all of the businesses in the downtown district.
And lastly, this is Thanksgiving week coming up, and I just want to say to the city how thankful I am to be here, and thankful for all the citizens. There's never a shortage of people out there to help when needed, to volunteer. I'm just grateful to be here, and that'll be something I'm thankful for next week and always, to be here in Newberry. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I want to add my congratulations and thanks to the Main Street organization. The Fall Festival was tremendous. It was a lot of fun. We were out there, nice weather, the dancing and the shows were great. I did get a message from Don Ricard, who's left Newberry, left this area, but he wanted to pass along his goodbyes and his gratitude for all of the years of support that the city has given to Blessed Hope, with your volunteer hours, your communications, your verbal support, your emotional, your spiritual support. So he did want to pass along that to you. He said it was a pleasure getting to know each and every one of you, and he's going to miss you when he's gone, and I think he already is gone at this point. I wanted to just say thanks to this board. I had an idea when I became a mayor, when I was sitting there scrolling through social media and seeing about the increased level of veteran suicides, the problems with the VA, the problems that veterans have getting acclimated back into civilian life, and I thought it would be great for us to come together as a community and have a little event, play some golf, have some fun, and help a veteran organization. And everybody up on this dais has helped me make that happen. I got 2 businesses up here, 3 businesses, with Frozen Berry sponsoring a hole, Spacewalk of Gainesville sponsoring a hole. John Birch Society is not only sponsoring a hole, they're also our trophy sponsor. Commissioner Farnsworth is bringing out a team to support the organization. Commissioner Coleman is coming. I know Commissioner Glanzer was planning on playing. She's had something come up, but she'll still sponsor a team. I mean, when you go out on a limb and you try to do something, you always run the risk of not getting a very good reaction, and then you tell an organization that you're going to try to do this and help them out, and then if it doesn't work out, it can be awkward and embarrassing. And I'm glad to say that that's not happened in this community. I told them that what we were doing and what we're doing for the veterans, and it was pretty easy to get all the holes sponsored, the competition sponsored. We've got a brand new contest called Longest Drive in a Tiara, sponsored by Miss Jessica over there. So I can't wait for that. I've got a tiara. I can't wait to see Commissioner Coleman and Commissioner Farnsworth in a tiara and see who. You play for free now because we got a sponsor. We'll see who wins, But you have to keep the tiara on your head. It can't come off. That's just made that rule on the fly. So, and we'll get lots of pictures. We'll get lots of pictures for the. Yeah.
Can we pay to make other people do it?
And you can pay not to have your pictures posted on social media. So I just wanted to extend my gratitude to you guys. You're wonderful to work with. You make it easy in this community to come together and do good things. And with that, open it up to citizen comments. You're perfect in every way.
I just wanted to say, earlier I was talking to Jamie and a few people back here about how thankful I am to live here. And I think all of us who live in this town should be thankful. When you go through Gainesville and see the mess they still have all over, with piles of rubbish and trees and stuff, it hasn't been like that here at all. You think back, and most of us, those of us who live in the city, also when the troubles came and we had no power, we had power. Most other people didn't, we did. So they're all, and you say something to Jamie about a hole in the road, you know what, next morning, that hole was fixed. So we have it pretty good here. We all want to be thankful.
He gets better as longer that beard grows, too. Any other citizen comments? Hearing none, we are adjourned.